Hey guys, EC Network here, coming at you with another video. I've been thinking a lot lately about the next iteration of Ben 10 and what exactly is going on behind the scenes with it. If you guys recall, when the Ben 10 reboot was ending back in 2021, almost 3 years ago at this point, which is crazy that it's been 3 years without any form of Ben 10 being on the air, but nevertheless, when the Ben 10 reboot was ending back in 2021, Duncan Rolu has stated on Twitter that the next iteration of Ben 10 was in the works, and it kind of seemed like Man of Action and Cartoon Network were having their disagreements on what they wanted to do next with Ben. Duncan had stated that it was supposed to be announced the 6th iteration by the end of that year, being December of 2021, and we really hadn't heard anything from anybody at Cartoon Network regarding the next iteration of Ben 10, except for a comment on Twitter from Jason DeMarco last year, who is the head of Action and Anime, where he said they're developing multiple ideas for Ben 10 and they don't know what's going to be picked up yet, if anything is going to be picked up, which I would have to say, you know, it's Ben 10, it's their biggest franchise, there's going to be a next Ben 10, it's just a matter of what that next big thing is. But like I said, I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and the more and more I've been thinking about this next iteration of Ben 10, the 6th series, if you will, it's starting to seem like stars are starting to align with it and when it could potentially come out and what it could potentially be about. So if you've been watching my videos about this topic over the past few years, you know that I've been saying for a while now that there's only 3 possible paths they could go with the next iteration of Ben 10. Option A is that it's a sequel series to the reboot, which at this point, that's not going to happen. And I say that because if a sequel series to the reboot was going to happen, it would have been on the air about a year or 2 ago, if not right after the reboot ended. So that's scrapped. That is not happening right now. The second option, option B, is that they do something brand new for Ben 10, a completely new iteration of Ben, a completely different timeline than the reboot timeline and Ben Prime's timeline that we have experienced before and seen before with the prior iterations of Ben 10. That's something that is still very plausible. It's still something that could happen. Back in those videos, I said it's probably a 60% chance that that was going to happen. I wouldn't say it's as high now, and I'll get into why that's the case. But option C is we return to the original continuity. And at that point in time, those videos a few years back, I said there's an outside chance that this could happen. The more I've been thinking about Ben 10 and where it's going next, and the more that this has been dragging on for, in my view, it's becoming more and more likely that we are returning to the original continuity. And part of the reason I say this, it's honestly a variety of factors that are going into this, but one reason in particular is that Cartoon Network lately, or rather Adult Swim, given that that's now the priority for Cartoon Network going forward, they've been showing a heavy reliance on older content, on older programs as of late, whether it be Checkered Past or the shows that they've been announcing, like the Powerpuff Girls revival series or sequel series that's in development, the Foster's Home Nursery preschool show that's in development, shows like that. There are a few others that they've talked about too, but it seems like they're relying more and more on older programs right now, on older properties and bringing those back. And I remember seeing a while back someone who works at Cartoon Network Studios saying on Twitter that right now at the studio, it seems like the only way to get a show greenlit is if it's based on an already established property that Cartoon Network owns. Hence the reason we're getting another Powerpuff Girls, another Foster's Home, or the Total Drama Island revival. So all of this makes me think that it is decently likely we return to the original continuity in the next iteration of Ben 10. Furthermore, to add on to this, it's most likely going to be a show that's going to be on Adult Swim, given that we've seen My Adventure with Superman on Adult Swim, we've seen Unicorn Warriors Eternals on Adult Swim. They have been making more series that are meant for mature audiences, and I only think it's logical to imagine an action-oriented series in the world of Ben 10 to find its home also on Adult Swim and to also be meant for older audiences. And older audiences, what would they relate to more? A random brand new iteration of Ben, or the return of classic Ben, the return of Ben Prime in a 6th series or a 5th series in the original continuity? Again, it just seems logical that they would want to make the sequel to Omniverse in the next iteration of Ben 10. And lastly, the thing that I've thought about recently that points me to this direction as well, that we're going to return to the original continuity, is the timing of everything that's been happening right now with Ben 10, or over the past year or so with Ben 10. So last year, in the early parts of the year, we had that tweet from Jason DeMarco that I referenced earlier in this video, saying that they're working on some ideas for Ben 10 and they're developing them currently, meaning that the new series is probably pretty pretty far out still, and it's not something that we're going to be seeing on the air in 2024. At least I don't think it's coming out this year. I'd be pretty surprised actually if that was the case. But what does that mean? What is the timeline for a new series if they were working on it in early development last year? I feel like if they're working on it in early development in 2023 in the beginning of the year, that's probably going to end up coming out if that series does end up being picked up for a full season. It's probably going to come out in 2025, and 2025 just so happens to be the 20-year anniversary of the original Ben 10. And what better way to celebrate the 20-year anniversary of Ben 10 than returning to the original continuity, continuing the story that was started 20 years ago back in December of 2005. It just seems like so many things are pointing to us returning to the original continuity. Of course, nothing is confirmed, nothing is set in stone, but in all honesty, at this point, if we didn't return to the original continuity, I'd be pretty surprised in all honesty, because just the track record that we're seeing lately with shows coming out of Cartoon Network, or the shows that they have been announcing, the fact that we're seeing older audiences get more programs from Cartoon Network, and those shows are being aired on Adult Swim, such as Unicorn Warriors Eternal, My Adventures with Superman, even Adventure Time Fiona and Cake on Max, and whenever Batman Cape Crusader comes out on Amazon, that's another series that falls into this category. It just makes sense for Ben 10 to add to that roster and to join those shows, being series that are meant for older audiences, and all of them have a bit of an action element to them. Couple that with the fact that next year's Ben 10's 20th anniversary, and I can't think of a better way to celebrate it. Really, if they return to the original continuity, I feel like not only would they get hardcore Ben 10 fans like me back into the franchise, but I feel like fans who, for example, some of my friends grew up with the series and then they fell off around Alien Force or Ultimate Alien, I feel like they would get them back into the show. I was actually talking to a friend about this recently, and I said, if they returned to the original continuity and made a new Ben 10 on Adult Swim, would you watch it? And he told me that he might actually check it out, despite the fact that he hasn't seen an episode since season 3 of Alien Force. So I feel like it just makes too much sense for this not to happen, and the fact that the timeline is setting itself up, as I said before, where it was in early development at the beginning of last year. If they picked up that series, it's probably in production at this point, so it would be done maybe by the middle of next year, which just lines up perfectly for the 20-year anniversary of Ben 10. So yeah, I think I know when the next Ben 10 is coming, and I think I know what it's going to be about. I think it's coming in 2025, and I think it's going to return to the original continuity. As for what form that takes exactly, a Ben 10,000 series, a show on Ben in his 20s, or maybe even, they could plausibly even do a 5th season or revival series that takes place between Ben 10, the original show, and Ben 10 Alien Force, where we see Ben take off the Omnitrix and quit being a superhero. They could do something like that as well. Whether it be one of those three things or something outside of that, either way, I think we're returning to the original continuity, and I think it's happening next year, and I can't wait to hear more details on this, because it will probably get announced, I'd imagine, maybe at some point this year. If not, then at some point early next year, but we'll have to wait and see. But nevertheless, I'm pretty excited to see what's next for Ben 10. Anyways, let me know in the comment section below what you guys think about all of this. Are you guys excited to see what the next series of Ben 10 is going to be about? And do you agree with me that there's too many factors here leaning into the fact that it might be a return to the original continuity? If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to see more content like this from DC Network. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.